they stopped teaching. So if you went through the schooling system as I did after 1972, that was never taught to you. So I really sort of boned up before I went on the JET program because I wanted to make it as professional as possible. So I did a TESOL certification, which was one of the most rigorous TESOL certifications. For some reason, in Ontario, they decided recently that they would make the most rigorous qualifications for ESL teachers in the world. So you had to teach for 300 hours before you could teach professionally. So you had to do like all the TESOL certification courses ended up being this is going somewhere, by the way. all the TESOL certification courses included a very robust practicum element, as well as all the learning about English. And so that opened my eyes to English language. And one aspect of English that I didn't realize that languages were based on, they're like time-stressed languages. So English is a time-stressed language, whereas conversely Chinese is a tone-stressed language. Mm-hmm. And the time stress means that English and other time-stressed languages are ideal for rhyming verse, for rhyming accentual verse, the verse that I wrote Zoku-Mizu in. And that kind of planted a seed that made me wonder, would it be possible to write a really long, and it made me curious about that, and then said, well, if any language can do it, it would probably be a time-stressed language, specifically for accentual verse. It would be a time-stressed language like English. So yeah, I mean that, and then of course I started writing Zoku-Mizu while living in Japan. So at some level, my time over there was, being, I think, absorbed in language was a good.
But did you actually work on the book while you were in school at times, or only after?
No, sometimes when I was at school.
Yeah.
I'm sure if anyone's been on the JET program, there are some days where you're not teaching any classes,
yes.
but you're required to.
Months.
But you're required to sit
right.
sit in that desk. And yeah, I know that my fellow staff members sometimes would think I was a very majime student of English, because I would be sitting there writing lists of rhyming words. Yeah. So, yeah.
I was always told I was very studious. So whenever I was writing, it was obviously for the school. So all of you've had books. These books have been published fairly recently. Yes. So the business side of this all, how. The publishing industry, like music industry, is taking a lot of hits in terms of way people, how much people read, how you market yourselves. All three of you have. It's interesting. All three of you have blogs, and that's a fairly, in terms of writing, Charles Dickens never could imagine such a thing. It's so you have a direct way of talking to your readers. Mm-hmm. How much do you use your blog to do that, and what else do you do to market yourself and your book?
I was bullied into having a blog by my agent. I didn't want to do it. I felt like any time spent writing should be spent writing my next book. But then she said, but look, you just have to do it, or else like other publicity people won't get in line behind you and give their 100% if you're not giving your 100%. So I did it, and then I found that I really enjoyed it, and I met people through it that like I never would have met before, and it's nice to have some kind of presence, because it's great to get emails from other people, like from kids or from adults. It's like, I read your book, I really liked it, and you get in the conversations with them, and it feels like your friend. Actually, there's like somebody I was on, she reviewed my book on her blog, Leaving Shangri-La, LA, and she's here today because she happened to live in the area, and I said, oh, great, and so I think having a web presence is great. I had to be dragged kicking and screaming to do it, and to have a Facebook account. But but I mean it's crucial, and it also gives you ideas and stuff to do. Like I found like a bunch of books that I had written when I was 7 in a box at bottom of my closet, so I just scanned them and put them online. And so like I find that 5th graders that I go and speak to them are really interesting, because that's something that they could do, and they're like, I said, like I made this one book and I put it online. I implied there was a part 2. like one of the kids in my set, I read The Odd Fish, and it was okay, but that book that you did when you were 9, you put the sequel online too. Yeah.
And you should see, and when he's talking about these pictures, he's literally scanned, and they are, they're clearly written and drawn by a 5th grader. Is that how old you were?
7-year-old.
Yeah, 7-year-old, yeah, young. It's quite priceless, actually, because it also ends at a point when,
I tragically lost a couple pages, and so like I threw it open to my blog readers. Like, if anybody wants to write the ending to this and draw pictures for it, please do. And like it started to trickle in, like these kids with their own endings of the book that I started when I was 7. So yeah, that's only possible on the internet. So it's very fun.
And it's also interactive. The other thing you've done that I loved, and it gave me a great sense of who you were, besides the book, I guess it was a few months ago, he did this hilarious blog about New Yorker cartoons.
Oh, yeah.
And I want you to talk about that, because that had me laughing out loud.
Okay, I think everybody here has seen a New Yorker cartoon, right?
This was the perfect audience for the
Yeah. They're kind of, they're funny often, but sometimes they're infuriating, or they're kind of too New Yorky. Like, as a Chicagoan, I have a chip on my shoulder about New York. Or too insular or whatever. And I thought, like, I bet that these could be generated by an algorithm. So I have this party game that I usually play with my in-laws, like when we all have a couple drinks. What you do is you draw, like each person, like in a group of like 5 or 6, draws a couple New Yorker cartoons, but no caption. Just, so like 2 dogs sitting in a movie theater, talking or whatever. But then you also write 3 or 4 captions, but with no picture. Then you throw them all into a hat and draw them out randomly and match them together, and maybe 40% of the time, it's a valid New Yorker cartoon. So I posted like the best ones on there. And
my favorite one, there was one of 2 flies in a bowl of soup, or cauldron of soup.
Yeah, and one of them just says, "I wish I was taller."
I wish I was taller. I had to stop myself. I choked. It was great. Roland?
Which was the blog?
Not only about blogging, but also just the business of marketing yourself.
Yeah. I mean, I think, as you pointed out, the opportunities for writers to reach an audience, at least in print, have diminished severely, in fact, in the last 4 or 5 years. Mm-hmm. So a lot of newspapers, if the newspapers are still around, have cut, reduced, or completely dropped their books pages. So the old way of getting a couple of good reviews that might perk up a readership is almost impossible right now, because no one's reviewing books in the first place. So I think, it was a similar situation. It was, in my case, not my agent, but my publicist at Palgrave, who said, could you get one of those blog things going? And, and in a way, and I think you alluded to this, it's a way of showing the marketing division, some of you may be publishers, I don't know, but the marketing department, that you will help them if they help you. And you really going in, unless your name is Philip Roth or Barack Obama, going in to publish a book, having the contract and the advance and that whole part of the business, that's just a fraction of the job. Even delivering the book, because once the book is published, you have to, in most cases, at most publishing houses, convince the marketing team, who are, I don't even want to reveal what their salaries probably are, that they should get behind your book. And one of the only ways to do that is to convince them that as the author of the book, you will participate. Whether it's, both fantastic performances, by the way, performing for an audience, so giving them some entertainment, or blogging, going on Facebook, doing something that shows the marketing team that, hey, this person is going to participate, so maybe we can do something to help market the book. Because a vast majority of books published in this country just disappear very, very quickly. In fact, if you go down to the Strand bookstore, which is still around here in New York City, and look through the bins, it's really quite heartbreaking. It's this beautifully bound hardcover edition of a first novel or a second novel, professional author's photograph, 6 blurbs on the back from, Mick Jagger, Madonna.